Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay. Hi, Dr. Michelle. I am. Hello. No need to. Oh, can't hear you yet. Might just be connecting to audio. But don't worry, you don't need to have your
Hi.
camera. Oh, hi. Oh my
Cool.
goodness.
I just wanted to test it first to make sure I looked okay.
You look fantastic, actually.
Oh, thank you. You look
Uh,
great.
thank you.
I love your hair.
Thank you. I actually know I followed your half purple journey for a while, and I was like, maybe I should
Yeah,
try
it's
doing
down
my
to
whole.
like here now.
I can't wait for mine to grow out. The roots are quite disastrous. So I'm just going to be connecting this. So we have an overflow room on Facebook. So I'm just going to be making sure that that doesn't blow up because it has
Okay.
not literally, but it has metaphorically blown up a couple of times. We just have to make sure it doesn't hate us today.
Mhm.
Because if it doesn't, then we're good. But if it does, I will activate backup plan because I do.
Okay.
Okay, so share on a page you manage. I will mute. You feel free to mute, turn off your camera if you want, or leave your camera on. I will just be silent. Great. Okay, it looks like my lipstick is on my teeth, which is a wonderful start to the live. It looks like we are officially live. We should be waiting for we have 34 participants in the room at the moment. Just to give everybody an opportunity to settle down and get their questions ready. We will start the webinar in about 5 minutes, just to give everyone some time to breathe, relax, grab water, grab snacks. We have a very, very long and informative, not very, very long, sorry, very, very informative. It will feel very short, I'm sure, because our webinars tend to, especially when we have really great guests, and we have a very, very good guest for us tonight. I'm trying to resist the urge to fangirl. If you are a skincare addict such as myself, you are probably already a huge fan. And if you are not yet a skincare addict and are just becoming one, this is one of the people you should go over to Instagram right now and follow right now, which is at Labmuffin Beauty Science. She is with us in the room today, Dr. Michelle Wong. But before we have her greet everybody and before we get started, again, please just settle down and we will start at 6:05 in 3 minutes. All right. an audio reminder, some gentle reminders for everyone as we get ready and as you just grab snacks. Instead of verbally asking questions, we ask that you use the Q&A function. There have been people who have submitted questions in advance. Those will be added to the Q&A function as well. An audio reminder, some gentle reminders for everyone. Right, sorry about that. So the Q&A function, so please type it in the Q&A function and not in the chat function. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you will see Q&A right there. Also, if you have a question you'd like to ask on the spot, I'll be in the Q&A function. And we will be entertaining mainly questions from the Zoom room. If you are watching in the overflow room on Facebook Live, we cannot guarantee your questions will be asked. If we have time, we may be able to get a couple of selected questions. However, you can still participate by registering, as we will be giving everybody who registers on the Zoom link a surprise at the end of the live. I know, right? Well, not the end of the live, but the end of the webinar. So it's in the follow-up email. And finally, as with our general kind of thing with webinars to encourage audience participation, we are giving away, and we will be selecting at random 2 people who asked really, really good questions. Selecting at random, obviously, during the webinar session to receive a gift certificate from Elana Cosmetics. So that's how it's all going to go. We have 1 minute left. Get ready, and then we will begin. All right, it is 6:05 on the dot, it is 8 o'clock, I believe, in Sydney, Australia, which is where our guest is based. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frankie, and I'm a representative of Elana Mineral Cosmetics. We're just the host for this particular webinar, but the star of the show is none other than Dr. Michelle Wong, aka Labmuffin Beauty Science, who is a very well-respected skincare content creator, particularly because she has technical expertise. So instead of just giving you advice ourselves on skincare, we'd rather that you ask the experts. We at Elana advocate that you really get to know the products you're using and talk to reputable sources. So this is the most reputable source, one of the most reputable sources that we know, and I'm sure all you know as well. I won't say more. Take it away, Dr. Michelle. Please introduce yourself to everybody and then say hi.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Thank you so much for your introduction. That's really, really lovely of you to say. So I'm Dr. Michelle Wong. I'm Labmuffin Beauty Science on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel and a blog as well. And yeah, I'm a chemistry PhD. I talk a lot about how skincare ingredients work, how skincare works, lots of misconceptions people have about skincare, lots of ingredient talk as well. Yeah.
All right. Before we get into sort of the Q&A proper, because this is really going to just be an open forum for everybody to ask their questions, and we're going to read a couple that were submitted in advance. May we ask, why decide to kind of take your PhD knowledge into the social space? What inspired you to set up Labmuffin Beauty Science to begin with?
So during my PhD, I found that I was looking for skincare products, and I would start looking up what products that I should use. And sometimes I'd come across things that to me seemed like I wanted to know more. So I was like, why do I have to apply chemical sunscreens on bare skin? And I'd look it up and I'd try to understand it. And a lot of the time, I just wouldn't find good answers. This was back in 2011 because I'm quite old. So I've been around for a long time. And back in 2011, this was before Instagram, before YouTube was really big. And so it was really, really hard to find any good information. So I ended up doing tons and tons of research. And I found that I was looking up science journals and I was reading really technical articles. And I was like, well, I'm doing a PhD in chemistry. If someone else who's not doing a PhD in chemistry wants to know the same answers, they would have to do so much work. So that's why I started my blog, so that I could explain these things that I was wondering in easier words so that other people wouldn't have to go through the same awful, long-winded experience.
My God, the ultimate problem with Zoom, always being on mute and thinking you're not. Well, thank you for sharing that. Before we jump in, aside from like, talking about your advocacy and why you set up Labmuffin Beauty Science, I think the big question for everybody is, what were the misconceptions, so to speak, that perhaps maybe fueled the fire? What are the skincare misconceptions that you'd like for everybody to know? Just setting the stage for the rest of the questions.
I guess my biggest one was that natural products are necessarily better than synthetic ones. That was one of the really big ones.
Yeah.
That was there for a long time. So lots of people would be like, why don't I just use a lemon on my face instead of a vitamin C serum? This is like, again, this is 2011, about 10 years ago. Yeah, lemon was all the rage. People were like, dip a lemon in sugar and then rub it on your face. It's so much cheaper and so much better for you than a vitamin C serum. Why would you ever spend money on it? So that was probably the biggest one. So I guess a lot of us know the answer now because this information is so much more easily available. It's because in lemons, it's not controlled. You don't know how much vitamin C you have. In a vitamin C serum, that vitamin C has been taken out, it's been measured, and then it's been put into a form that's very stable. And so you're not just guessing randomly. There's also other ingredients in lemon that aren't good for your skin. In your vitamin C serum, these aren't there. So these are things like furocoumarins. These are chemicals that react with your skin in the sun and it leads to blisters. So obviously that is awful, but that's because a lemon isn't designed to be placed on your skin. A vitamin C serum is, so it doesn't have these skin irritating chemicals.
That was actually a great point. I know that actually in the Philippines, which is obviously most of our audience from here, there are still these natural remedies floating around. And because skincare is such a nascent space in the Philippines, it has only really come to prominence very, very recently as it become very, very noisy. So there are a lot of these kind of like home remedies around. One of them, just is going to jump in and with a question somebody asked, very upfront, why can't I put, so we have the lemon one, but another one people like to do is they like to put ground up aspirin on their face. I don't know if that's something you've encountered.
Yeah.
Why is that bad? Because I know it's bad, but why is it bad?
I mean, it's not really, really bad. It's not as bad as lemon. Like there are some home remedies that are fine. So one that I really like is actually using sugar as a body scrub. I think that works really well. It's effective, it's cheap, it's not dangerous. But with aspirin, so aspirin is acetylsalicylic acid. So a lot of people see that it's very similar to salicylic acid, which is a very popular beta hydroxy acid exfoliant. The problem is it's not quite salicylic acid, so it's got the acetyl group, which blocks off the hydroxy part. And so it doesn't really work the same way. So that's problem number one. It doesn't work as well as the thing you're trying to copy. The other problem is that it's very acidic. So, I mean, you can tell from the word acid. It's acidic, which means it's low pH. Now, our skin is slightly acidic. It's about pH 4 to 6, but it's not that acidic. So if you just dissolve acetylsalicylic acid in water, I don't have the exact number, but I believe it ends up somewhere between 2 and 3. And that's a bit too low for your skin. So that can be quite irritating, especially if what a lot of people do is just grind it into a paste and then stick it on their skin as like a big white blob. So over time, that can irritate your skin. It can cause like a mild chemical burn. And for Asians, this is particularly bad because we are really prone to hyperpigmentation. So basically, if you have I think if you do have light skin and dark hair, this is one of the worst situations because your body is capable of producing tons of pigment, but it doesn't produce lots of pigment on your skin. And so if you irritate it enough, you get post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which is where all that pigment jumps out and you end up with a brown mark that takes ages to fade. This happens a lot after pimples. Yeah, so that's the risk you're really running into.
Speaking of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, so sorry, it's still quite a big word in my mouth. That is actually one of the main problems people asked about when we asked them like what questions they would send to you. A couple of people were too shy and they just direct messaged us, the team, but they asked, what ingredients should I look for to fade is it possible even to fade those scars and those marks? Because that's where we see a lot of these home remedies coming out, you know, like this will get rid of the spot, this will get rid of the blemish. So what, is it possible to do that, to fade those blemishes? And if so, what ingredient should we be looking for to do that? What are the things that are guaranteed going to work, even if it'll take some time?
So yeah, I mean, the main thing is time. So you have to be patient with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. This is pigment that's at the very bottom of your epidermis, which is the top living layer of your skin. It takes a while to get out. So firstly, you have to be patient. There's not going to be an overnight remedy. So definitely invest in concealer because that is the only overnight thing that will work. Well, actually, another thing that will work is laser, but of course, laser is really expensive unless you have tons of money. You probably can't get laser every time you have a brown spot. So in terms of skincare, the biggest thing is sunscreen. Your body has the ability to fade it on its own, but if you're constantly re-exposing it to the sun, it's a little bit like a scab, like a wound that you keep on just scratching at. It's just never going to heal because you keep on irritating it. So yeah, the first thing is make sure you have a sunscreen, ideally something with good UVA protection. So in terms of things that protect from UVA, my favorite things are the newer chemical filters. These are sometimes a bit hard to find. So these are things like Tinosorb S, Uvinol A+. They show up a lot in sunscreens from Asian countries, but not from the US because it's banned in they're not allowed yet in the US. So those are really good. Zinc oxide is another UVA filter, which is a little bit more easy to find. That one you can find in US sunscreens as well. Avobenzone works as well. Sometimes it's a bit hard to stabilize, so it's a little bit hit and miss. I recommend looking at reviews for sunscreens that people said help fade their pigment. So number one thing is sunscreen. Other skincare ingredients, vitamin C is really good. Niacinamide. If you have stuff that's quite stubborn, you can go to a dermatologist or a doctor and ask for hydroquinone, which is a little bit more risky because there's some side effects with that. It's very irritating, but if it's with supervision from a dermatologist, then it'll work really well. Azelaic acid is another one that's quite popular. Alpha hydroxy acids will help as well. So this is chemical exfoliants, things like glycolic acid, lactic acid, mandelic acid.
There are two ways this is going to go because we're already getting questions about AHAs, which is a big thing. But before we get into that, hydroquinone is a big discussion right now on the internet. I'm not sure if you've seen this about the Philippines because, you know, news on our shores don't get around a lot. But hydroquinone has been being sold through gray market or like non-dermatologist means. So just wanted to clear this up with you. Why is it potentially dangerous or not the best thing to use it without dermatologist supervision? You know, based on what it could do to you. Can you just enlighten us a little bit about that?
Honestly, the main thing is irritation. It's really irritating. If you use it for too long, then you might even get worse hyperpigmentation. That's the biggest danger. If you use it too long or if you use it over too much of your body. The other problem is, depending on what the grey market products are, some of them are actually not, they're not the same formulations that you would get from a dermatologist. Sometimes they mix it with other things. And the other things can be quite dangerous. So sometimes they're mixed with steroids, which change how your skin functions and it changes its immune function, which means that you might end up with, you might end up with an impaired barrier, which is like your skin just gets much more prone to irritation and disease. Sometimes it's also mixed with mercury compounds, and that's really dangerous because mercury is a heavy metal. You run into that sort of risk if you get something that's unregulated, especially if they know that it's unregulated, so they're trying to hide it, and so you don't know what's in there. Unlike a skincare product that you buy from a reputable brand or something that's been prescribed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So first, one of our first questions from anonymous attendee. I would recommend, guys, please put your names because otherwise we won't be able to identify who asked good questions and we can't give away the gift certificate. Speaking of AHAs, and you touched on AHAs, should you use chemical exfoliants so that they'd have the greatest effect? Is it so either what stage and also where should they be mixed? Because there's also this kind of, you know, they have come up with products where AHAs are married into cleansers, married into toners, or married into serums. So two-part question, if you could walk us through.
Sure. So with alpha hydroxy acids or with any chemical exfoliants, there's kind of like a continuum, like a gradient. So you go from gentle to harsh. And really, I think you shouldn't go too harsh. So harsh things, they tend to work faster, but you also run the risk of irritation, which means that a lot of people over exfoliate, which means that you burn off too much skin. And that means that your skin gets really sensitive, it gets really itchy. You put on sunscreen and it starts stinging. Like it's just generally not very good, and it takes a while to recover. So I recommend starting gentle and going more harsh. So gentle things are going to take a bit more time to work, but then you don't have time where you have to use nothing and do nothing because your skin just can't handle anything. So I recommend going from gentle. So yeah, if you're going for more effective, that is going towards harsher, which isn't necessarily good. But in general, if you leave it on your skin, it's going to work. It's going to be harsher than if you wash it off. So in cleansers, it tends to work less effectively, which can be good or bad. If you apply it onto dry skin, it's also more gentle than if you apply it to wet skin. So wet skin is a bit more permeable. It goes so chemicals can go through your skin, including chemical exfoliants. It goes through more deeply. Um, with AHAs, there's also size. So the bigger the molecule, the harder it is to get through your skin. The smaller it is, the easier it is. So from smallest to biggest, it is glycolic acid, lactic acid, mandelic acid for the three most popular ones.
Okay, so
Um,
mandelic would be the gentlest, would be the mandelic acid.
gentlest, yeah, exactly. There's also percentage.
Mhm.
In general, well, the higher the percentage it is, the harsher it is. There's also pH. Sorry, this is a lot. The lower the pH, the harsher it is. In general, if it's a more watery product, if it's a runnier product, it is harsher. And if it's a thicker, creamier, oilier product, it's gentler.
Okay.
So this is all very general. Um, yeah.
I think that would be a lot already to work with for everybody here. There's a really interesting question because we're talking about acids, and here is one that is, I don't know if you actually did a post on this, which is why I started singing your praises everywhere. I was like, yes, thank you. Which is the idea of moisturizing not necessarily always being good for you if you have oily skin, etc., etc., etc. And you kind of debunk that and said it still can work. It doesn't make it so that you exfoliate less, etc. But one question people have is, if I have oily skin, can I use popular moisturizing ingredients like hyaluronic acid? So Ruby Recosado asks, is hyaluronic acid advisable for people with oily to combination skin?
Um, so you can think of your skin's oiliness in two ways. So there's oily versus dry. So how much oil you have on your skin. In general, if your skin gets shiny throughout the day, especially around your nose, around your forehead, around your chin, that's the T-zone, then you probably have oilier skin. If it stays very matte, very not shiny throughout the day, you don't need powder, you feel like you need moisturizer, then your skin is dry. You can also think of how much water your skin has. So you can have hydrated skin, which has lots of water, and you can have dehydrated skin, which is lacking in water. And usually this changes a lot. So most people, they don't always have hydrated or dehydrated skin, whereas oiliness is sort of constant. Um, so if your skin's oily, you have lots of oil, but you may or may not have enough water. So my skin and a lot of Asian people's skin tends to be oily, but not necessarily hydrated, and it tends to get dehydrated easily, especially if you're in a lot of air conditioning as well. Air conditioning is very drying in that it removes water really easily, so you can get really dehydrated skin. Hyaluronic acid is a fantastic ingredient for adding water to your skin. So if you have oily but dehydrated skin, then hyaluronic acid is excellent. Another really good one is glycerin. You can also sort of tell this because this is quite common with people with oily skin who haven't been using moisturizers.
Mhm.
It sort of feels like your skin is dry, but there's a layer of oil in it. It's a little bit like crackling, dry, tight plastic with oil on top. So if you're in that situation, using a moisturizer or a serum that has hyaluronic acid or glycerin, these are called humectant moisturizers, tends to work really well.
Okay, thank you. I just did this just to translate this into, there is a particular term in the Philippines that they use this. If your skin feels like just to give the Filipino word for everyone, hagod. I'm guessing that's what it means when it feels dry and tight. That's the hagod feeling. But bakat, that's the term. Bakat siya and nababanat siyang ganun. That means that that's possibly you have oily but dehydrated skin. So just giving them a translation because there are actual terms that we use to describe that. So for you guys, if you were confused, there you go. Wow, there are so many questions, and this is great. One question off the bat, since you were talking about home remedies, I just want to throw this out there. Tomato-based products, very popular in the Philippines. A lot of products saying tomato, it's really good for acne-prone skin. Is this true? Is there any chemical compound in tomatoes that helps with pimples at all?
I can't think of any, but it does have lycopene, which is an antioxidant. Antioxidants are generally good. I think they're good for everyone really, because they absorb free radicals. These are really reactive things that lead to aging and inflammation and acne. So in that sense, it could work. I think it has anti-pigment properties, but I'm not entirely sure. Haven't looked into it before.
Okay, thank you. There's something is asking, this is about back to sunscreen, I guess. So there's questions. So this one's about sunscreen. Your advice about how much sunscreen to apply to the face, etc., and when we should and should not apply sunscreen is huge. But I guess somebody wants to clear it up. When I apply sunscreen, will it affect the SPF? Because we're told to use it as the last step, correct? Like usually across the board is the last step. But if sunscreen makes my skin shiny, will it affect the SPF if I top it off with a finishing powder? Is that going to inhibit the SPF at all?
Honestly, anything you do is going to affect the SPF a little bit afterwards, but of course, most of us wear makeup, so we can't avoid it. So in general, it's just best to try to do it as lightly as possible. So if you're doing a finishing powder, try to use a really soft, fluffy brush and just dust it on, or even just pat it on rather than just like go like that. That would be safest, yeah.
My question is, since we talked about like anything we put on the skin affects the SPF efficacy, when we apply SPF makeup on top of SPF, which is, you've mentioned also SPF alone is not enough, right? SPF makeup alone is not enough. So when we apply SPF makeup on top of an SPF, does that still disrupt the SPF underneath? Or is it just it's better?
It really depends. So most of the time the SPF in makeup is lower than in sunscreen. So if you're applying a less concentrated product on top, then it probably will disrupt it a bit. If they're the same SPF, then chances are it shouldn't make a big difference. Sometimes the sunscreen chemicals and the two things can interact. This is quite rare, so just try to match up the sunscreen actives, sunscreen ingredients if possible.
Okay. Wow, they're coming in hot. There's one. I have oily and acne prone skin. Since we were talking on the subject of like oily and dehydrated, and now we know that there can be a difference. So I'm oily and acne prone. What are the skincare ingredients I should avoid? Because we hear a lot about what we should do, what we should use. But what should I not touch?
So if you have oily and acne prone skin, I think one mistake that a lot of people make is they try to clean their skin too much using really harsh cleansers. So I would recommend avoiding that. If your skin is oily and acne prone, try to still be gentle with it. So maybe use a gentler cleanser. Don't try to dry it out with alcohol. I think also like with a lot of acne treatments like benzoyl peroxide and salicylic acid, they tend to be quite drying. So even then, try to still use a moisturizer with that if your skin is feeling those Filipino words that I can't remember.
Banat and bakat.
Yeah.
Like vocabulary lesson. But yeah. Okay. So those are just to avoid, just to recap, you mean to avoid harsh cleansing, and if you have to use acne treatments because they will be drying, to use moisturizers. So I guess Karen Taladen, hope that answers your question. Oh wow, this is a really interesting question as well, because we've actually gotten two questions, one from an older person and one from a younger person, asking about my main concerns are fine lines and wrinkles. I have them on my forehead, under the eyes. Are there any ingredients other than retinol that will help improve those issues? Like fine lines.
There are quite a few. So firstly, sunscreen to avoid having it get worse. And in fact, there is a study that found that using sunscreen stopped you from aging. And one of them actually found that it reversed wrinkles. So yeah, basically your skin has the ability to heal itself if you stop attacking it, if you stop sunlight from attacking it. So using sunscreen, I think a lot of people tend to avoid sunscreen because they don't think it does anything. But yeah, it protects your skin while it heals itself. So definitely sunscreen. Alpha hydroxy acids can work as well. If you're using alpha hydroxy acids, definitely use sunscreen because it makes your skin more sensitive to the sun. So I have a friend who was using alpha hydroxy acids without sunscreen, and her freckles got darker and darker, and she didn't know why. And it was because she wasn't wearing sunscreen. So don't do that. Don't be like my friend either. Yeah, so alpha hydroxy acids can exfoliate, and it can also help plump up your skin with collagen. Next down the line, like the next thing, oh, I forgot to mention niacinamide as well. Niacinamide works really well for pigment, and niacinamide can work for wrinkles as well. You can also try using, so you said retinol. Of course, that also means other vitamin A derivatives as well, like retinaldehyde, tretinoin, all of those retinol derivatives as well. There's something else I was thinking of. Vitamin C. Vitamin C can help as well. So vitamin C, if it gets deep enough, it can increase collagen. So that can help with fine lines too.
Thank you for that. Those are, of course, really powerhouse ingredients. Just to jump back into the sunscreen reversing aging, and now I have a theory that that's probably why vampires never look old. Not because they're vampires, because they never go in the sun. But in the Philippines, unlike in other countries, the skin tone tends to lean more towards tan because we're Malay. I'm being one of the weird exceptions. So even if I have a lot of, because people think, oh, I have a lot of melanin in my skin because I'm tan, I don't need sunscreen as much. Is this true? Or is this, blatant lie?
It's true that you don't need sunscreen as much because you have a little bit of natural sunscreen. So if you are very, very black, you have the equivalent of SPF 15. So it's not a lot, but because it's always there and it doesn't wear off like sunscreen does, then over time it is quite effective. But a lot of the time, yeah, if your skin is less like I think most Filipinos, based on my Filipino friends, aren't that dark. So it'll be less than SPF 15. But the other thing is, even if you have darker skin, you are more prone to hyperpigmentation. So if you have dark marks after acne, that attracts the light as well. And so that gets darker. And so it's not just about aging, it's also about pigmentation, especially for people with darker skin.
Okay. People are asking, if somebody's jumping in with, we're talking about ingredients. Is it safe? What age is it safe to start dabbling in ingredients? So somebody's asking, is it okay for my 12-year-old to use beauty care products? So
I think in general, if you are like a teenager, you don't need to use anti-aging products just yet. If you have acne though, there are some anti-aging ingredients that help with acne too. So alpha hydroxy acids, vitamin A products, all of those also help with acne. But if you are a teenager and you don't have acne, then I think really the best thing is sunscreen. You don't need to use any of those yet.
Okay. Somebody's asking about pH. So we talked about AHAs, alpha hydroxy acids. There is this new thing, PHAs, which I don't even really know what that means. Are they, I have never heard of, actually I've heard of it, but I don't know what it means. How helpful is it compared to AHA or BHA? What is the truth about PHA? What is it?
So there are a lot less studies on PHAs compared to AHAs. Most of the studies are by the people who invented PHAs or discovered them, and they licensed the use of them. So the studies aren't very well replicated, so we don't know as much about them. But according to them, they are better than AHAs because they have the same effects with less irritation.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
but it's not as validated by the greater scientific community, is what you mean?
Yeah, well, we just don't know yet enough about them yet. So I think try them out if you have the products, try them out and see what you like, see whether or not you see a difference. I think that's the best way to tell.
There's a question here. For those working night shifts and sleeping during the day when the sun is up, BPO country, can sunscreen be worn during sleep? Is there? Yeah. Interesting question.
It can. The only problem is a lot of sunscreens do tend to clog your pores and break you out. If that's not a problem for you though, there are like I've found a few sunscreens that don't do this, and my skin loves to clog up. So yeah, if that's not a problem for you, then you can wear it all the time. But most people like to give their skin a break from sunscreen because it tends to clog up their pores. But if you're sleeping and it's all dark, and there's not very much light coming in, then I wouldn't bother putting it on.
Okay. There's a question here about sunscreens again. I guess that's everybody wants to talk about, which is good. Are spray on or liquid sunscreens? So there's a big thing now about sunscreen mist, right? Are they equally as good in coverage as lotion or cream type sunscreens? That's from Jethro May Miral. Yeah.
They are if you put on enough. That's the hardest thing, putting on enough. So what I like to do to measure how much sunscreen mist I'm putting on is if you get one of those quarter teaspoon measures that you use to weigh out, like scoop out sugar for baking.
Mhm.
If you get one of those and spray the mist into it and see how many sprays it takes, then you want to apply approximately a quarter, whatever fits into a quarter teaspoon. So I tried it out with 3 of my sunscreens, and I think it was somewhere between 5 sprays and 10 sprays, somewhere around there. So yeah, try it out on your own sprays. It will probably be more than you think. So if you just mist it down once, it probably won't be enough.
Okay. This is a question about kind of comedogenic ingredients. So one of the common home remedies is coconut oil. But people have heard that it can cause acne. Is there a compound in it that makes it more comedogenic, or?
So coconut oil, the reason it people say it's comedogenic is because in some studies they've tried it out on people's backs and it tends to clog up their pores. It isn't. I don't think it's due to a compound in the coconut oil. I think it is the coconut oil itself, so the coconut oil molecule. Yeah, so I think it's actually that. But a lot of people use coconut oil with 0 problems. So I think it really depends on your skin. If you are using it and it's not causing any pimples, then keep using it. Because a lot of this is, a lot of comedogenicity is also partly to do with how your body interacts with the ingredients as well. So if your sebum doesn't have ingredients that react with the coconut oil to form clogs, then you'll be fine. But if your sebum has more of something that clogs up with it, then it will break you out.
So that's the first thing I've heard. Sebum, all sebum is not created equal. So different people's
Yeah.
sebum is different?
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so there was a study, so this is just one example. Actually, I can think of a few other examples. But anyway, depending on your diet, you can have different amounts of fatty acids in your sebum and different types of ceramides as well. If you have eczema, then you tend to have less of one type of ceramide. If you have, they did a study on people with acne, and they found that people who were more prone to acne had more squalene in their sebum. So squalene is a long chemical with lots of double bonds. That means that it reacts quite easily with oxygen and in sunlight. And when it reacts that way, it actually goes solid. And so that tends to clog up pores. So a couple of companies have come up with ingredients that are antioxidants that stop the squalene from oxidizing, and then that tends to prevent the sebum from getting thick and sticky. But yeah, so one of the theories behind why some people get more acne is because their sebum gets thick and sticky more easily, and so it clogs pores.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
new to
really
us.
interesting.
That is really cool, because all this time I thought like all sebum is sebum. If you have more sebum and less sebum, okay. So that's
I mean,
why
there is also more and less as well. There's so many variables. It's really interesting.
my mind is just like, I'm the emoji with like the thing coming out of its head. That's boom. So this is why it's so important to know what's in your ingredient list, because you don't know what could be interacting with your sebum. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And I'm sure there are so many questions about that, because here's a question actually asking about, speaking of interaction of products with my skin, alpha arbutin. It's a big ingredient come out. Someone asked, what does it do up front, and who can apply it? Someone just asked right now.
Okay, so I can't remember this off the top of my head, but it is mostly something that works on pigment. I can't remember exactly how, but it reduces the amount of pigment in your skin. So it's really good for fading hyperpigmentation, fading sunspots. Yeah. Who can use it? I don't think there's anyone who can't use it. So it's just a general skincare ingredient, without any effect, like any necessarily bad effects for anyone. But if you're pregnant, because I'm not entirely sure about this, if you're pregnant, ask your doctor before using any skincare chemical. Yeah.
Okay. Because this is a question like something that people ask this, like there are two different ingredients that do the same thing. Which one should I end up picking? Like alpha-arbutin, brightening, niacinamide, also brightening. Which one? I think that's a
Mm.
big question. Like, which one should I use, or how should I kind of figure out the best way to go look into it?
Honestly, it's really hard to say which one to use because from talking to so many people, everyone has had different experiences. And I think it's partly to do with the fact that everyone has different skin and different products work better for different people. So people with oily skin might have some products that work better than people with dry skin. Um, yeah, so the products that work really well for pigment, the things that you might want to try, the best thing that I think everyone should be using is sunscreen. After that, the things that lots of people have had good luck with, if you have sensitive skin, niacinamide is really good because most pigment treatments are really irritating, and niacinamide is the opposite of that. Then after that, retinoids, I think this is just my hunch. I think retinoids work better for white people. um, this is just a hunch. But most of the studies on anti-aging and tretinoin have been done on
Yeah.
Caucasian people, and they age in a different way. So
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when they age, they get fine lines and wrinkles more, whereas when Asian people age, we tend to get coarser wrinkles, which are deeper, and we tend to get more pigment. Yeah, so it's like just different skin types. Again, I think it's partly to do with melanin as well. So having the melanin prevents fine lines from developing as easily. Yeah, so retinoids are something worth trying. Vitamin C, butane, hydroquinone, all of these things have lots of studies on them.
Okay. Speaking of like fine lines, wrinkles, and the idea of
Mm.
collagen being part of them, somebody's asking up front, what are your thoughts about collagen? Because there's a trend now in ingesting it, and that's supposed to help your skin.
Mm.
Does that actually work?
Um, from the studies, it's kind of hard to tell because a lot of the studies are funded by manufacturers who make collagen products. So of course it's going to be a little bit biased, but some of them are actually done with universities. So they should be a bit more reliable. From those studies, it seems like it does work, but but about as well as a moisturizer.
Oh,
And moisturizers are a lot cheaper. So I would recommend firstly trying sunscreen and moisturizer and some of the better known anti-aging ingredients. And then if you have the money and if you're not happy enough with those results, then you might want to try collagen. So yeah, I try other things first.
one of the things I think as well when it comes to skincare is beyond just treating an issue, it's not doing stuff that will make an issue happen. So Julius de los Santos
Mm.
has a really interesting question about ingredient interaction and potentially damaging your skin by making things interact. Is it safe to use retinoic acid every night plus pads that contain salicylic acid and glycolic acid? So things to use at the same time and things not to use at the same time is a very good question. So we are very confused about this.
So it depends. The main issue with interactions is really just having too many irritating ingredients at once. So the most important things are to add things in slowly. So don't put all of this on your skin at once. So start with the tretinoin, start slowly with the tretinoin. After a while, if your skin gets used to it, then maybe add in the peel pad once every 3 days and then add it up to once a day.
Mhm.
And then if your skin is still fine with that, then that's fine. Um, so yeah, don't go in too fast, go really slow and also know your skin well. So start to like listen to your skin, see if it's reacting, and then yeah, once you know whether or not your skin is like, if you can feel whether or not it's getting sensitized, whether it's getting more irritated, then you know to stop. um, yeah, so there's no definite rule about you can definitely do that or not. In general though, most people I think are not going to be able to use um, two acids and tretinoin on the same day.
Okay. And in general, though, just to jump off from that, are there ingredients that are just hard no, thou shalt not combine ever?
I think the only one is benzoyl peroxide and vitamin A, unless it's stabilized. So that's just because the benzoyl peroxide will break down the vitamin A. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of ingredients people are afraid of, just like not to use thou shalt not, alcohol is discussed on
Mm.
skincare. Is it actually as bad as people say? Is alcohol in the ingredient list of skincare products not actually safe? So Lizette's answer, that's asking this.
So I actually have a video on this, where
I follow
kind
our
of
YouTube.
Stephen, another chemist, and I went through all of the studies. Um, Basically, there are lots of things about people say about alcohol, so that it can cause aging. We didn't find any evidence for that. That it can dry out your skin. It can, but if you use a moisturizer, then it undoes it. So if you have enough moisturizing ingredients, if you after you've used the alcohol, your skin doesn't feel tight, then it should be fine. Um, I think we also saw it's irritating. There wasn't much evidence that it was irritating. Um, it does tend to sting your skin if you have compromised skin, so if you have a small cut or something. But that pain is not the same as having any sort of damage. So it's a little bit like when you have a cut on your hand and then you go into the shower and you put water on it. That really hurts, even though water isn't hurting your skin. Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. So it's less about, if I get, tell me if I understood this right. It's less about
Mm.
just alcohol itself, and it's using alcohol or any drying ingredient and then not moisturizing is where the damage
Yeah.
may happen.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question from, speaking of alcohol, actually, because this is a popular ingredient, witch hazel. Carrie Isabel Hufano
Mm.
asks, I want to know, what are your thoughts regarding witch hazel as an ingredient? It's a very popular ingredient in toners in the Philippines. So does it really do anything? I guess is the question.
Um, I don't think it does very much. So it's an astringent, which means it closes pores, but it only does that temporarily. So it only does that for like maybe an hour or so after you've applied it. It does have antioxidants, which is good, but I think there's also other products with antioxidants that are a bit less harsh. I think one of the problems with toners with witch hazel is that a lot of the time they just make your skin feel tight, and that's not a good thing. That means that your skin isn't moisturized enough. Yeah.
Okay. So Brain de Chavez just asking about kind of like witch, aside from witch hazel, because there are witch hazel sunscreens. Somebody's asking, so nice segue. To aside from witch hazel, what age are we encouraged to start using sunscreens and also build a simple skincare routine? So what age should we start? Is it really never too early to have one, or is there really an age where you're like, this is when you start? Don't before this age.
I don't think there's any age that's too early. I think even if you're 12, I think that's a good time to start wearing sunscreen.
Mhm.
Um, if you're even with kids, if they're going to the beach, it's really good to get them to wear sunscreen. With the deadlier skin cancers like melanoma, it's associated with childhood sunburns. So if you get burnt once, I think it's like if you get burnt once really bad when you're a kid, it increases your chance of developing melanoma by I can't remember how many times. So yeah.
That is okay. That I think, make your kids wear sunscreen. So we've learned from YouTube. Speaking of, so there are two questions here related. So we'll start with antioxidants. We'll go back to that discussion. So speaking of ingredient layering, as we talked about earlier, is it okay to layer antioxidants? So vitamin C and green tea extract, tomato extract and vitamin C. So is it safe to layer antioxidants?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, antioxidants are really good to layer on top of each other. They can actually help each other out and keep each other active.
Oh, so they're friends, guys.
Mm.
And this is one, I'm not sure if you know about this. In the Philippines, skin whitening is a huge thing, and one of the big things that people use is oral glutathione. So aside from niacinamide and just hyperpigmentation, they're really big on big oral glutathione for skin whitening. Dosage usually varies from 200 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams. Is this safe for the skin in any way? And does it have any harm, if you're aware, does it have any potential harmful side effects on the body? If you're aware, this might be a bit.
I haven't actually looked into this before, but
Wow.
I feel like I should. Sounds
Yeah, this is what I
really
know about
interesting.
this, is that it's like there's not a ton of stuff out about this actually, because
Mm.
glutathione was usually
Mm.
just supposed to be a liver supplement. So yeah, thank you for asking that though, anonymous attendee.
Mm.
Let me see. Okay, something but people ask. You mentioned that astringents close pores. Is a question actually people have. Is there any ingredient that can permanently close my pores, or are they just open forever?
Um, there are a few studies that have found that you can reduce the appearance of pores with niacinamide. Um, There was another study, but they used like three weird ingredients together.
Mhm.
Um, so I think they were just trying to sell their cream. Um, but generally, not really. You can reduce the appearance of your pores by using by keeping them clear. So you can use salicylic acid, and that will reduce the appearance of pores, especially if you're worried about little blackheads in your nose. that will keep that clear as well. Yeah, so generally if you use things that unclog your pores, it should over time make your pores look smaller.
This is something interesting. I think just on the subject of sunscreen again, since we're all work from home, is it true? I believe you actually have a video on this or content on this. Is it true that you still need to use sunscreen at home because of the radiation of your laptop or the lights or whatever? Is it actually true?
Not from the lights inside your house. Yeah, so with screens, there's not enough light to make a difference. With indoor lights as well. But if you are working near the window and you get a lot of light from the sun, then you might be getting a lot of UVA, in which case you should be wearing sunscreen.
Okay, more questions. I'm just digging deep. There's a lot. So follow up this person follow up to the witch hazel question. Does witch hazel make skin sensitive over time?
I'm not actually sure. I don't think it does. But yeah, I think, however, I think a lot of witch hazel products are quite drying and irritating. And so if you're constantly drying your skin out, then your skin will become more sensitive over time.
Just to jump on that as well, are there any ingredients that can make your skin more sensitive over time? Is there anything that can alter your skin that way?
Pretty much anything irritating can do that. So alpha hydroxy acids, vitamin A, vitamin C, all of these can make your skin more sensitive over time if you keep on using them and you keep on irritating your skin.
Really interesting question. Masking, big thing now. What masks do you recommend for oily and acne prone skin? Because there are ingredients like mugwort and kaolin. What are the stuff that are chemically proven to work?
So I think for oily skin, the best sort of mask is just clay masks. So yeah, kaolin, bentonite, these soak up oils, they soak them up and they kind of get rid of oil for a couple of days. So it's not something that you can use once and expect ongoing effects. You have to keep on using them.
Mm-hmm. What about, okay, so wow, they're just going to give you the rapid fire because you actually only have 10 minutes left. Just so you guys know, time check.
All right.
15 minutes left. 15 minutes left. Rapid fire. Oh my God. I told you guys it was going to be fast. This feels like it was super quick. What are your thoughts about oil-based skincare? Works on oily skin, does not work on oily skin, using facial oils?
It can, just be careful because some oils might break you out and it might make you oilier. So I have oily skin. I prefer using them at night.
Okay. Is it okay to skip facial exfoliation? Is it necessary to always exfoliate your skin?
You can if your skin does exfoliate itself. So if your skin is doing a good enough job, it's fine. But I think most people who are interested in skincare, if you exfoliate, your skin will look nicer.
Okay. Oh, this is a good question. When and how do you actually put on toners? Because people are very confused about this particular step in the skincare process.
So I think with most toners, if they're alcohol-based, honestly, I don't think anyone really needs them. If they're hydrating, I think right after cleansing is a good step. Generally, very generally, you can put on your skincare products from the runniest to the thickest.
Okay.
And that's usually a good order.
Okay. People have heard that vitamin C is really good as a night skincare product. But sorry, as a day skincare product. Is it okay to use at night? Does it still do anything? Okay.
Yeah.
I just vitamin C all the time. You mentioned that, this is a really deep one. You mentioned that you have a hunch that retinols may be better or more suited for Caucasian skin. Other than retinols, are there any other ingredients that maybe there are studies that say they don't work as well on Asian skin of any kind?
I haven't come across anything except for the retinol, but most ingredients have been studied most on white skin.
Oh, okay. So you could still expect some variance on Asian skin if ever. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of the time, one of the reasons why dermatologists tend to be quite skeptical of skincare ingredients is that they haven't been tested on large populations. Most of them are tested on white females. Yeah.
Okay. This is a popular ingredient in the Philippines, so they want your thoughts on it. Kojic acid. Does it work? Does it not work? What does it do?
It works, but it's quite irritating. So it's good for fading pigment. Yeah, okay. But it's one of the more irritating ingredients for that.
So would it be safer to use it in lower concentration if ever, or this just means?
Yeah, it's safer at a lower concentration. If your skin is sensitive, then I would recommend trying the other pigment fading ingredients first.
This is interesting as well because a lot of people like using vitamin C and sunscreen together, and some sunscreens have zinc. Will zinc affect the potency of vitamin C?
It shouldn't. I would apply the vitamin C first and then wait a few minutes and then apply the zinc sunscreen.
Just going to read this out. She said, not a question, but I'm just a fan of Michelle. More power to you. This Kyra Isabel,
Thank
she
you.
just wants to like tell you she loves you. We all do. I am a huge fan. Please follow, by the way, please follow Michelle on her YouTube channel. It's Labmuffin. She's Labmuffin Beauty Science everywhere. If you're not already reading her, watching her, or following her on Instagram, what are you doing with your lives? Live your life, please. This is interesting as well. Not about chemicals, but about kind of chemical interactions. Do home LED masks work on your face at all?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I've gotten a few brands to send me the LED masks. I'm going to ask my my old boss, who is a physics professor, to help me measure the light. Yeah,
So there's like a
we'll
like,
find out. I think some of them work. Yeah, the problem is all of them use different powers and all of them use different wavelengths, and I need to measure it and see what happens.
So the answer is to please follow Labmuffin on Instagram and
We'll find out
YouTube
someday.
everywhere, and she will report to us when she finds out. Oh, controversial question. I like this one. Do eye creams really necessarily work, or are they just moisturizers that are repackaged as eye creams?
They are usually moisturizers. If they're like well formulated, then they should be thinner, so they shouldn't cause milia, which is when you get clogged pores around your eyes. And they should have ingredients that are better for wrinkles. But yeah, you can just use your other products and bring them up to your eyes.
Oh, okay. Speaking of milia, somebody actually just asked this. I can't find it, but they did actually ask. Remember, what ingredients help work on milia, or do I have to go to a dermatologist already?
Generally, you can try to exfoliate them, but it's a lot faster to get a dermatologist to extract it.
Okay. Jade rollers. That's all the question was. Jade rollers question mark.
I think they can feel nice, but I don't think they do most of the things that they say they do. So I think they can feel nice. They can move lymph. They can do like a lymphatic drainage, which is a temporary effect. And they're relaxing. If you have jaw problems, they can be quite relaxing for your jaw muscles, but they're not going to prevent collagen, prevent wrinkles, clear your skin from toxins. Yeah.
Question about castor oil. So castor oil is very, very much advertised as effective for hair growth. I know it's good for making hair like healthier, but hair growth, does it actually make your hair grow?
I think it's only if your hair isn't very well moisturized and it's been breaking off. It might help reduce breakage by conditioning.
Okay. So that's how it works. It's not actually making it grow more. It's just making it not break off. Good to know. But I guess better for people who maybe have like, who tend to see falling, like get stuff falling off their lashes or their hair breaking.
Yeah, or breakage, yeah.
Okay. This is really interesting. Hi, what's the best way to address enlarged pores and minor scarring from healed pimples as I age? My dermatologist had advised me to start retinol since I'll be entering my 40s soon. Will this also address those other concerns?
Retinol can help, but sometimes if the scars are too deep, then no skincare is going to help. You're going to have to do something deeper, something like microneedling, generally things that you would have to go to a dermatologist or a skin clinic.
Okay. Pia Magdalene Opeña asks a really interesting question. Most of the Philippines have oily skin, but with dry skin, what ingredients should I use to help heal scarring on my body, because it takes longer to heal? So ingredients that would work for dry skin and scarring.
Most of the ones that work in general for scarring will work with dry skin. Moisturizing works really well for old scars as well, especially for massaging motion. So a lot of it is just rubbing that scar tissue.
So stuff like Centella asiatica and vitamin E, all that stuff. Okay, so same things as we normally use. All right. Okay, somebody's asking about, is there a difference between sebaceous filaments and blackheads, and how do I get rid of them?
Not really. So it's all just like the bigger it is, the closer it is to a blackhead. It's not, there's no like cutoff. In general, blackheads are harder and they're harder to extract because they're bigger and so they're filling up more of the pore. For reducing them, salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxide, alpha hydroxy acids.
So it's HHS.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question people get a lot. Are the fewer ingredients a product has, the better? Question mark.
Not necessarily. I think sometimes with longer ingredients lists, sometimes you're like, why did they put so many in? Are they just trying to make this product seem better? But yeah, generally not necessarily.
So the answer would just be like, educate yourself maybe on the whole INCI list.
Yeah, maybe ask the brand like what the ingredients are doing.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a question about eye creams. That's the same. Oh, okay. So this might be somebody who didn't. Yeah, you actually have a couple of posts on this. How much sunscreen should I apply to my face? Is there an exact ratio? So you mentioned the quarter teaspoon, but is there any measurement if I don't have a quarter teaspoon? How do I measure it, if ever? I don't know.
That's a good question. So I think quarter teaspoon is the easiest. So they shouldn't cost too much. I think.
People say like the three-finger method. They've heard of that. That's something people bring
Oh
up.
yeah, the three-finger method. That should give you enough. But of course, everyone's got different size fingers, and everyone does different thicknesses of lines, so it's really hard to say. A quarter teaspoon is 1.25 milliliters. So if you have a plastic syringe, if you have a plastic syringe, you can measure it in that, or a medicine cup. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, y'all know what to do. Go to Mercury Drug and get a plastic syringe. Mercury Drug being our local druggist. Okay, nice, interesting question, because he talked about squalane and like hardening in the sun. Does heat and humidity affect serum in general? Sebum in general.
It does. So the warmer it is, the easier it flows, and so your skin gets oilier. But theoretically, you should be less pimply because it clogs pores less. Theoretically.
I didn't know.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that change. So but like there's so many variables. So the warmer it is, the easier your sebum flows, and so it shouldn't clog as much. But the more likely you are to be exposed to more sun. And UV makes the squalene oxidize and clog up your pore. Yeah, and heat might be irritating. There's a lot of variables.
So it's like heat could irritate you. Being in the air conditioning could be the reason why your pimples are like clogging up. This is wow. Skincare.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
That's
It's
why you
hard to
listen
say.
to a doctor and not do weird stuff in your houses, guys. How harmful is fragrance in skincare? Also a thing with the whole ingredient demonizing thing, right? How harmful is fragrance?
That's a good question. It really depends on the concentration and how sensitive your skin is. Generally, in skincare, the concentrations are very, very low because they're close to your face, and so they don't put in as much fragrance. Yeah, so if you are allergic to fragrance, then you should avoid it. If you're not seeing any irritation, then it should be fine. But if you have a really fragrance product with a really high amount of fragrance, everyone will be sensitive to it.
Yeah, because of the nose, obviously also.
Yeah.
Is the interesting question is like, since you talk about not all natural things are good necessarily, are fruit-based or fruit extract ingredients effective on skin?
Depends on the fruit extract. So let me think. So there are some fruit extracts that will work. So there are some vitamin C rich fruit extracts which will have enough vitamin C to make a difference. Centella, well, centella's not really a fruit, it's a plant, but that works really well. Depends on which plant.
Okay. So just ask the brands, dig deep, do research, demand transparency.
Yes.
Okay, this isn't a comment. This is just like this is fun. If you were on a desert island and there was one ingredient you could bring with you in a skincare product, what would that be? So what's the must-have skincare ingredient?
I feel like it's just going to be sunscreen because desert islands are really sunny.
From sunscreen, because that's a given. Like, I'm sorry, that's like
apart from sunscreen. Yeah. Okay. I would probably go with vitamin A.
Oh, so it's like a replenish. What does vitamin A actually do to the skin? Because I hear it does stuff, like it's a retinol, but what does it do actually?
So it changes how your skin cells replicate. So it makes them replicate properly because they tend to replicate like younger skin does, basically. And so that leads to like better skin turnover. It flattens the outer layer of your skin and thickens the inner layer. So it keeps your skin a bit more plump, a little bit more elastic, and a bit more glowy as well. So it looks a bit more radiant. Yeah.
Okay. Last few questions, because we only have like 3 minutes left. Rapid fire. Differences in UV sunscreen from the PA, because there's the PA rating from Japan, and then there's broad spectrum. What's recommended? What should we look for when looking for a sunscreen? PA++, broad spectrum, question mark.
Highest for everything, while still being comfortable. So you can still apply a large amount on your skin.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question, Liberty. Microneedling. So if someone's asking about derma rollers, micropuncturing, does it do anything to your face?
It does, but if you're doing it at home, you run the risk of infection. So I think it's always safest to go to a dermatologist or skin clinic and get them to do it properly with the proper hygiene.
Okay. What are your, this is, I've never heard of this in my life. What are your thoughts about placenta soaps? Are they advisable?
I don't think they do much, and they're very expensive and kind of gross.
Yeah, I do think that, yes. You guys know what placenta is, right? If you don't, look it up. Is there any product that can remove skin tags and warts? Are those the same as blemishes, I guess they're asking, or any ingredients that can lessen their appearance?
Um, there definitely are, but they're usually more medical. So really high concentration salicylic acid will like kill the wart and make it peel off.
Okay. So this is a question about, I guess, lights from phones and lamps. Do they lessen the effect of retinoid? Does light actually
Um,
affect retinoid at all?
it can, but generally you have to have very bright light, so sunlight, for example.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd recommend just applying it at night.
Okay. Please tell me more about purging. So this is an ingredient, like what ingredients cause it and how do I know if I'm, experiencing it, I guess. Good question.
That's quite a complicated question. So purging is usually when the mini pimples in your skin come up faster because you're using an ingredient that increase your skin turnover. So your cells, everything's going faster on your skin, and so they all come up at once. And this is a good thing. Well, it's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not going to last. It's going to finish purging, and then your skin will be fine. So things that increase cell turnover are things like vitamin A, alpha hydroxy acid exfoliants. Those are the main ones. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so if it doesn't contain those ingredients and you're breaking out more, then it's probably a breakout rather than purging.
Mhm.
Um, what else is there? How can you tell if it's purging if it has those ingredients? Um, Generally, it's in places where you already get pimples, and generally it'll finish in a few weeks and it won't get worse.
Okay. So I think this is gonna be our last question. My goodness, there are so many of these, and we love it. We hope you guys learned a lot from this. We sorry we couldn't answer everything. I have dry skin with open and large pores. What ingredients should I look for when choosing cleansing toners? And is it okay to use a facial scrub after a facial wash?
Um, I think it's good to use a like if you are going to use a scrub, using it after a facial wash is a good idea, because then you're not rubbing extra dirt into your skin.
Mhm.
Um, in general, though, I think it's very easy to use scrubs too much and too harshly, and that can make your pores look bigger. So I would recommend maybe not if you're already not using if you're not already using chemical exfoliants, maybe try using an alpha hydroxy acid. So alpha hydroxy acid can have a plumping effect, which can make your pores look smaller. Vitamin A can also make your pores look smaller because of that plumping effect. Um, if you have dry skin, I would look at the dry skin and the pores separately.
Mhm.
So with the dry skin, I would look at more moisturizing, using more oils and more humectants, so glycerin, hyaluronic acid, some oils that your skin likes.
Mhm.
And yeah, with the pores, using alpha hydroxy acid, you could try using alpha hydroxy acids, vitamin A, niacinamide, not all at once. um, yeah, don't start all of them at once. Just try one, see if you like the effect. If you like it, then keep using it. If you want more, then maybe add another ingredient. If you try it and you don't like the effect, then you can stop using it, and then you don't have to spend more money on that product.
So
And then
basically,
yeah,
just
try something else.
don't strafe bomb your skin in
Yes,
desperation to get rid of everything at once.
yes.
I think
It's very tempting,
the
but
last question we have. Sorry. I keep cutting you off. Yes, I'm so sorry. Just wanted to get to this question because it's really a big one. Everybody asks, how long do I have to wait before I see results?
it depends on the product. Usually give it 2 weeks before giving up on it. If it's ideally give it a month before giving up on it. Um, with vitamin A products, it can take up to 3 to 6 months, which is the longest wait. But yeah, generally, a lot of products you can see an overnight result, but yeah, it can take up to 6 months if it's vitamin A.
Okay. So be patient, be nice to your skin, and follow at Labmuffin Beauty Science on Instagram. those are our final tips for how to have good skin. Thank you, Dr. Michelle, for everything. Just going to announce the winners really quickly. Congratulations to Via, VEA Gaigon, Yasmin Magsipok, and Cara Isabel Hufano. Congratulations to the three of you. The randomizer, our computer randomizer has spoken. You guys are the lucky three to get GCs. Everybody else, though, you will be getting surprise at the end of the, we'll get in the follow-up email. Please give us feedback. And of course, I say it again, follow at Labmuffin Beauty Science. If you didn't get your question answered, she's written a lot. You've written a lot. There's so many videos. A lot of the questions you guys have asked are actually videos about some of these things. So go look. And thank you so much, Dr. Michelle, for giving us your time. I know it's super late there. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you, everyone. Bye.